Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars video. So, today we've got a very interesting one. It's always a great day when we have some Andor news, and today we have some new comments from the showrunner Tony Gilroy, who sat down with Reason.com. And as you can imagine, when certain themes come up, when politics are introduced into the mix and there is a lack of nuance, some Star Wars fans responded very passionately and didn't like some of the things he said. As a notoriously passionate fandom, we're always going to have our disagreements. But there's one specific argument which I still don't understand. It was a prevalent talking point when Andor Season 2 was releasing, and it's one which just keeps coming back. The idea that Tony Gilroy's show is incompatible with George Lucas' Star Wars. And I just want to begin with a clarification. If you've watched my videos then you already know this, but I'm a fan of both. I'm a huge George Lucas fan. I grew up on the prequels. I love the crazy, weird and wonderful aliens, the big lightsaber fights, the mysticism and the battle between good versus evil. But I also love what Andor contributed to Star Wars. It was such a new and unique flavour. Deepened the politics, furthered our understanding of the early Empire and the start of the Rebel Alliance. It was great. I'm a fan of both. So if you're new to the channel and you don't know much about me, let me just say from the outset, I love Andor and I adore George Lucas's episodes 1 to 6. They are my holy grail of Star Wars. But as I'm sure you're aware, that is not the case with everyone. And I've met so many fans who say, they love the original trilogy or the prequels or whatever, but they can't get behind Andor. To them, it's just an abomination. The way it goes about exploring Star Wars is just not for them. And that's fine, there are plenty of Disney Plus Star Wars shows that aren't my cup of tea. But my real point of disagreement is when they say Andor is incompatible with original Star Wars. And look, many of them do concede Andor is a great quality show. Great writing, great visuals, but it's just not Star Wars. Not in their book, and goes against every principle of George Lucas. Because it's less mystical, because it doesn't have the Force, lightsabers, no Palpatine or Vader, and both have lots of politics, but because Andor's politics aren't as veiled as the way George Lucas did them in the prequel trilogy, they say it doesn't belong in the same saga. They assert it's Star Wars adjacent, maybe Star Wars fanfiction, maybe a related sci-fi show, but it's not real Star Wars at its core, and that's where I strongly disagree. And I don't want to straw man anyone's arguments, but I feel like a lot of people who don't like Andor misunderstand what Tony Gilroy was trying to do. He was in no way trying to undermine George, he was trying to give Star Wars a meaningful contribution in a way that had never been done before. As a prequel to Rogue One, he was taking a tiny microscopic part of the timeline and expanding it, and the way I would describe it is a radical form of world building. We saw crucial events on both sides, the Rebels and the Imperials, that would lead up to Rogue One and A New Hope. The characters who were behind the scenes, the underdogs, the ones who weren't the royal family of Star Wars as he puts it, so not the Skywalkers, not the Emperor or Vader, the ones who really built the foundations that led to the Rebel Alliance and the Rebel victory on Yavin, and on the Imperial side, that led to the creation of the first Death Star. And in that respect, I would say he succeeded with flying colours. He showed us the characters who made a difference, but you never knew their names. The rebellion wasn't just Luke, Han and Leia, it was the work of hundreds of rebels who paved the path for Yavin and paved the path for the characters whose names we do know. And once you understand that principle, my friends, I would argue the rest just kind of falls into place. Not only did he have vital creatives kind of collaborating with him when you talk about Easter eggs in Luthen's office and those kinds of things, but Tony's even admitted he's not oblivious to the bigger players around during this time. Obi-Wan, Vader, Sidious, but from the get-go he wanted to show us more everyday people, give them the spotlight and make their characters just as fascinating to fans. And again, top marks, he did a great job. And if you want to bring it down to its simplest terms, the difference between Tony and George is while George focused on broad strokes, so more allegorical tropes, mysticism, galactic stakes, Jedi versus Sith, accessible to all age groups, Tony Gilroy took that as the foundation, got his microscope, and hyper-focused on a small chunk of the Star Wars timeline, 5 years. And this rendered Andor's politics hyper-specific. He showed us how oppression works day to day. This is why the show focuses on prisons, apartments, labor, propaganda, informants, and radicalization. It's the same galaxy with the same tyrant in charge, but from a very different perspective. And this is why we don't see Palpatine, but we see the fruits of his labor. The ones who carry out his cancerous will and affect the lives of day-to-day people. But it's the same galaxy, and Andor enriches our understanding of it. I don't see any contradictions. Andor is just a very different kind of Star Wars. Far more mature themes, very different stakes, and a different pacing. But from where I'm standing, it enriches your viewing experience. It doesn't take away from it. And in a brand new interview with Reason.com, Tony Gilroy explains his framing for the show, why it is the way it is. Anything real, anything you can identify as reality is going to be more emotionally connected and more terrifying, or funnier, or more poignant to you. And you know it from any kind of show that you ever watch. There's all kinds of lenses that we put on when we watch things. We're such sophisticated viewers of narrative at this point in our lives, and in our culture, and our history. Then he goes on to talk about the banality of evil, how fascism and authoritarianism don't always come with a cackle and a cartoonish evil laugh and a dark cloak and a red lightsaber. Sometimes it's far more mundane.
You might as well wear a sign that says, "I promise to disappoint you."
Something that feels real, something that you recognize, is always going to just dig a little deeper. Our show is always trying to be real. And behaviorally, our fascists are worried about their parking places. Our fascists are worried about whether they're going to get to the commissary in time to get the fresh cheesecake. Our fascists are worried about the person next to them getting ahead of them, or failing to hit their numbers on their quotas. They don't always come with droid armies or red lightsabers. Sometimes it's all done through propaganda, pencil pushing. And the term banality of evil is very appropriate in this instance. It was coined by political theorist Hannah Arendt in 1963, and her argument is that evil isn't always fanatical and not always sadistic. It's not always the monster screaming the loudest, but rather, it's often ordinary people committing horrific acts simply by following orders. They go through the motions, follow social norms even under authoritarianism, without critically thinking about the consequences. Those people, the ones who are logistical, the ones who are otherwise boring, often do the most harm. But the concept is often misunderstood. People think it's thoughtlessness, but often it's not literally lacking thought. It's failing to critically reflect on moral consequences of a current society. It's obedience by habit. It's protecting hierarchy over conscience. Whereas in George Lucas's Star Wars, we see the masterminds, the ones with the big plans, but we rarely see those who work under them, and how their actions, as meaningless as they may seem, made all the difference, paved the way for fascism. And that's what makes people like Dedra stand out. She's a cog in the Imperial machine, probably never met the Emperor, but she is a true believer of the cause, and as such, in the grand scheme of the Star Wars story, she might be a nobody, but we saw just how powerful a monster like her can get, out of a kind of ordinariness and failure to question. Andor highlighted the danger of blind obedience. Bureaucrats enforcing harmful policies without questioning them, corporate or government officials enabling mass suffering, and ordinary citizens trying to work their way up. Many people who worked for the Empire were fanatics, but the vast majority just thought, well, this is the new government, this is just the new reorganized galactic system and we have to just follow orders. We just have to do what we're told. So then Tony says this: part of the success, or part of the game plan of authoritarianism or fascism, when it's played well, is to create an environment where people will willfully forget about those things, because, oh, it's not me, I was only taking orders, I was asked to do this, everyone's doing it, it's the system. And some people might hate that because Star Wars is supposed to be an escape of sorts, but Star Wars has always been political. I just see this as a new flavour of it. And you don't have to like Andor, it's just one of many stories. Personally, I love it, and I can reconcile Tony's show existing alongside the Star Wars we all know and love. But what do you guys think of this debate? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed this one, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and may the Force be with you always.